My name is Helena. I'm 61 years old. What I'm about to share will change how you look at your own family. 3 days ago, my own son Damon and my daughter-in-law, Marissa, pushed my husband, Harold, and me off a 90-foot cliff near Maple Ridge. As I lay broken and bleeding on the rocks below, I heard Harold whisper through cracked lips, "Helena, don't move, play dead." I froze. I barely breathed. And in that awful stillness, Harold told me the most terrible truth a mother can hear, a secret our children had hidden for 25 years, for 4 decades. Harold and I thought we had built a good, simple life. Every morning in our small suburban home, the smell of fresh coffee drifted through the kitchen while sparrows sang on the fence. I taught at the local elementary school. Every afternoon I came home with stories about my students, how they learned, how they laughed, how they tried again after failing. Harold owned a little carpentry shop off Birch Lane. His hands were rough but gentle. He could turn plain wood into something beautiful. Tables, rocking chairs, toy chests, things made to last. We raised 2 sons. Our firstborn, Ryan, was the light of the house, always laughing, always helping Harold in the workshop, always stepping in to shield me from worry. Damon, 5 years younger, was quieter. He kept more to himself. I loved him with the same fierce love mothers don't choose favorites, or so we tell ourselves. Sundays were always the same. After church, we sat around the oak table Harold had carved when we were newlyweds. Ryan would share plans to study engineering. Damon would pick at his food and say little. Even then, something about his eyes sometimes felt distant, unreadable, but I pushed those thoughts away. Our life was beautiful in small ways. Walks at dusk, neighbors waving from porches, a porch swing that squeaked in rhythm with our conversations about the future grandchildren. Travel, growing old in the same house. When Ryan turned 20, something shifted. Arguments started between the boys, low, sharp whispers in the hallway that stopped when I stepped closer. "Just brothers," Harold said, wiping sawdust from his arms. "It will pass." I wanted to believe him. I needed our family to stay whole. Then came a night in October, exactly 25 years ago, when Ryan didn't come home for dinner. We waited until 11, then midnight, then 1. Damon said he was studying, but his eyes didn't meet mine. By dawn, neighbors had joined Harold, searching along the river and the old Raven Gorge. They found Ryan's body at the bottom. The police called it an accident, a misstep in the dark. I accepted it because the other option was too horrible to face. Ryan's funeral hollowed me out. I wore the same black dress I'd worn for my mother's burial. I sobbed until I had no voice. Damon stood very still, too calm for a boy who'd lost his brother. Harold gripped my shoulders the whole day, whispering comfort that now I know tasted bitter in his own mouth. After Ryan's death, Damon changed. He became attentive, helpful, soft-spoken. He started joining Harold in the shop, asking to run errands with me, bringing tea when I looked tired. I thought grief had matured him. I thought he was trying to fill the space his brother left behind. I didn't see it then for what it was. A perfect mask. Years rolled by. The wounds scabbed over, never healed. Damon married Marissa, a pretty, polite girl from the next town. She called me Mum and laid a warm hand over mine during visits. They had 2 lovely children. Damon opened a carpentry business of his own, said he'd learned from the best. Life looked steady again. But lying in that gorge 3 days ago, ribs screaming and blood in my mouth, I understood. Our happiness had been constructed like one of Harold's cabinets, but hiding rot inside. The first crack appeared 6 months ago, when Harold and I decided to update our will. We had saved across 40 years. The house, a bit of land I'd inherited from my parents, and our bank savings close to $200,000 total. Damon was the one who pushed the topic. "Mom, Dad," he said, smiling in a way that now makes my skin crawl. "You're both in your 60s. It's wise to get everything in order." Marissa nodded sweetly. "We love you. We just want you protected." Our lawyer, Albert, an older man we'd known forever, sat us down and explained options. A trust for the grandkids, a split inheritance, or a simple will. Damon kept steering the talk back to naming him and Marissa as sole heirs. "We'll distribute things fairly," he promised, "and when you're older, you'll need us. Better if we have access to take care of you properly." Something in his tone scratched at me. Harold, ever practical and trusting, seemed relieved to have responsible family in charge. I signed with a knot in my stomach. As we walked out, Marissa hugged me in her green dress and whispered, "Now we're officially united forever." A chill ran down my back for no reason I could name. After that day, their visits increased, but they felt different. They came with lists and suggestions. Sell the house, too big for you now. Swap insurance policies. Move savings. Higher yield. Mom, sign a power of attorney, just in case. Marissa ran fingers along our furniture like a buyer, not a daughter-in-law. Damon's eyes hardened when I resisted. This house is memory, I told them. Every corner is our life. Mom, Damon said, voice flat. It's irrational for people your age. What if you fall? Who helps you then? That night, Harold rinsed dishes while I watched his reflection in the window. Don't you think it's strange? I asked. How focused Damon is on our money. He cares, Harold said. But there was a shadow in his eyes I hadn't seen before. A week later, Damon pressed again. Just sign the power of attorney. It's precaution. If anything happens, we manage things smoothly. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I called my sister Harriet. She listened, and then went quiet. Helena, she said, why does a man with a successful business need control of your accounts? That same evening, Damon came over with maps and a bright smile. We should celebrate your 40th anniversary. How about a gentle hike at Maple Ridge next Saturday? Views are amazing. We'll take pictures. Make a day of it. My blood cooled. I glanced at Harold. He looked the same as I felt afraid. I tried to decline. Maybe something simpler, lunch in town. Marissa's hand was suddenly on my shoulder. Oh, it's easy. Even kids do this trail. We'll take care of you. The word care lodged in my throat like a stone. When they left, our living room felt colder. Harold dried his hands, then sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where the boys did homework. He stared at his fingers, and his voice dropped to a whisper. Helena, he said, there are things about Ryan's death I never told you. The room tilted. I held on to the chair. What things? I asked. He swallowed. That night, Damon wasn't in his room. I followed him to Raven Gorge. I heard shouting. I saw them arguing about money. Ryan had proof Damon had been taking from our savings. He confronted him. Harold's eyes filled, the way they hadn't even at the funeral. Damon pushed him, he said. Not a stumble. Not an accident. He pushed. The world went silent. My breath left me, and when it returned, it burned. Why didn't you tell me? I forced out. Because he was our only surviving son, Harold said, voice breaking. He begged. He swore it was an accident. He promised to pay back what he took. I wanted to believe him. I pressed a hand to my chest to keep it from cracking open. In that moment, the past rearranged itself. Damon's sudden kindness after the funeral, his careful mask, the pressure about our will, the bright idea of a gentle hike. The shape of their plan came into focus. And still 3 days ago, we got in their car. The morning of the family hike came too soon. The sky over Maple Ridge was clear, almost mocking us with its beauty. Damon arrived early, whistling as if it were a happy outing. Marissa followed, carrying a bright picnic bag, and smiling like she had been rehearsing for a play. Morning, lovebirds, Damon called through the doorway. Ready for your big adventure? I forced a smile. My stomach twisted. Harold placed his hand on mine under the table. He had slipped his phone into his jacket pocket earlier and set it to record. If we didn't survive, at least the truth might. During breakfast, I barely touched my toast. Damon spread a map on the table. The trail is easy. Leads to a lookout where you can see the whole valley. The view's spectacular. The way he said spectacular made my skin crawl. Marissa chimed in. There are some steep parts, but nothing you can't handle. We'll be with you every step. She reached out and brushed my arm with that same gentle hand that would later try to push me into the gorge. The drive to the mountains lasted 2 hours. Marissa sang along with the radio. Damon obeyed every stop sign, every speed limit. He didn't want an accident before his perfect plan. My throat stayed dry. Every bump in the road rattled my nerves. Harold squeezed my hand once, then tapped his jacket, our silent reminder. The phone is recording. When we arrived, the trail looked peaceful. Birds chirped. The scent of pine filled the air. But for me, every tree, every rock felt like part of a trap. Let's get going, Damon said, hoisting his new backpack. I saw ropes inside, a harness, even a flare gun. What's that for? I asked, pointing. For safety, he answered smoothly. If we get lost, we can signal. But I knew the truth. Everything in that bag was meant to sell the story of a tragic accident. We started walking. At first, the trail wound gently between tall trees. Sunlight flickered on mossy stones. Marissa walked ahead, snapping photos, exclaiming over wildflowers. Her laughter echoed like it belonged to another world. Damon stayed behind us, his footsteps deliberate. I could feel his eyes burning into our backs. Every time I turned, he gave that same rehearsed smile. How are you doing, Mom? Dad? He asked with false sweetness. Need a rest. After an hour, the trail grew steeper. My legs ached. Harold was breathing heavily. I saw Damon's grin widen, as though our weakness pleased him. "We're almost at the lookout," Marissa announced, though according to the map, we had another hour to go. That was when I realized they never intended to take us to the real lookout. They already had a spot in mind. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Marissa pointed toward a rocky path veering off. "Oh, look at that cliff. The view's incredible. Let's go up there for photos." My blood turned to ice. The cliff loomed above sharp rocks below. No trees to break a fall. Nothing but sky and emptiness. "I don't know," I said carefully. "Looks dangerous for people our age." Damon had already stepped onto the path. "Come on, Mum," he urged. "It's just a few minutes. Melissa's right, the photos will be unforgettable. Unforgettable for the police report." I thought. Harold gave my hand a discreet squeeze. His phone was still recording. We had to go along. If we resisted, Damon and Marissa would find another chance, maybe in our own house, maybe in our sleep. At least here, evidence would exist. The climb was brutal. Loose rocks slid underfoot. Twice I nearly stumbled. Damon's hand steadied me, but his grip felt like iron claws, not support. Finally, we reached the top. And yes, the view was breathtaking. Valleys stretched wide, rivers winding silver through the forest. Under any other circumstances, it would have been a beautiful family moment. Instead, it was the perfect stage for murder. "Stand over here," Marissa called, already positioning herself near the edge with her camera. "I want the valley in the background." Harold and I shuffled closer. Damon moved behind us. My heart pounded. I could almost feel the void yawning just inches away. "Perfect," Marissa said cheerfully, raising the camera. "Now hug each other. Smile." We obeyed. Each flash of the camera felt like lightning announcing a storm. "Take one more," Damon suggested, stepping closer. "But back up a little. The picture will look better." One step back meant standing right on the edge. Harold and I exchanged a glance. The time had come. We took the step. Marissa's eyes flickered. Sweet mask gone. "Smile," she said coldly. "This will be your last photo." Damon lunged forward, arms outstretched to push, but Harold, prepared all along, caught his wrist and yanked. "If we die," Harold roared, "you're coming with us." For one breathless moment, all four of us, Harold, me, Damon, and Marissa, balanced on the cliff's edge, locked in a deadly struggle. Then the ground gave way. We all fell. The fall felt endless. Wind roared past my ears. My stomach twisted as if it were being torn out of me. I saw rocks rushing closer, sharp and jagged, waiting to crush us. In that moment, I thought of Ryan, my firstborn, falling into the gorge 25 years ago. Now I understood his terror. The impact was brutal. A crack, then pain beyond words. My shoulders screamed, my ribs burned, my arm throbbed like fire. The taste of iron filled my mouth. I wanted to cry out, to beg for help. But then I heard Harold's faint voice, so weak I almost missed it. "Helena, don't move. Play dead." I froze. A few feet away, groans filled the air. Damon and Marissa had survived too. "Melissa, are you okay?" Damon's voice shook with pain. "My leg," she whimpered. "I think it's broken. It hurts so much." "What about them?" Her words cut deep. Them, not Mum and Dad. To her, we weren't family. We were obstacles. I felt movement near me. Damon's weight dragged across the rocks as he crawled closer. My heart raced. If he realized I was alive, he'd finish the job. "They're dead," Damon said finally. Both of them, eyes open. No breathing. Relief and horror mixed in me. Relief he believed as gone. Horror he said it with satisfaction. "Perfect," Marissa whispered. "Just like we planned, except we fell too." She gave a bitter laugh. "At least we don't have to pretend to love them anymore." Every word stabbed my heart. The two of them talked for what felt like hours. Their plan was clear. Crawl until they found a spot with phone signal. Call for rescue, and tell the story of a tragic accident. Damon rehearsed the lines aloud. "Remember, Melissa, Dad slipped first. Mum tried to help. We tried to save them, but the rocks gave way." "Got it. I know," she snapped. "We've practiced 100 times. We're the traumatized survivors. Poor us. Our dear parents died in a horrible accident." Their voices grew fainter as they crawled away. Finally, silence. Only then did Harold whisper, his voice broken. "Helena, are you alive?" "Yes," I whispered back, tears spilling. "Barely you. My leg's broken. Ribs too, I think. But I'm alive." I looked at my body. My arm hung useless. My head pounded, but I could still move fingers and toes. "We're hurt, but we're still here." Harold coughed blood. "No signal down here." I felt despair close in. Alive, but trapped. Injured, with no way out. "Before it's too late," I said softly. Tell me everything, Harold. Everything about that night with Ryan. His breath caught. He'd carried the secret for 25 years. He began in a trembling voice. Ryan came to me in the workshop that evening. He had bank papers. Proof Damon had been stealing from our savings for months. Small amounts, then bigger. Ryan was furious. My throat tightened, and he said he'd confront Damon right away. I followed because I feared what might happen. I found them at the gorge, shouting. Ryan called him a thief. Said if he didn't confess, he would tell us himself. Tears streamed down Harold's dirty cheeks. Damon snapped. He shouted that Ryan was always the favorite. Always ahead. Then he shoved him hard. I saw Ryan try to grab onto something, but there was nothing. He fell. I sobbed silently, my broken ribs aching with each breath. You knew all these years, I whispered. Harold nodded, shame filling his face. He begged me, said it was an accident, said he didn't mean it. He swore he'd repay the money. I believed him. God forgive me. I believed him. And the money? I asked. He never paid a penny back. He kept stealing. And I kept quiet. Every day I stayed silent. I became his accomplice. Silence stretched between us, heavy as the rocks around us. That's why he wants our finances now, I murmured. It's not about caring for us. It's about finishing what he started. Harold nodded weakly. Yes, and there's more. A few weeks ago I found papers. Damon's business. It's failing. He owes over $100,000. Banks, suppliers, even worse private lenders. I gasped. That explained everything. Desperation, greed, murder, and Melissa. I asked. She knows, Harold said bitterly. She's the one who always asks about our saving, insurance, the value of the house. She is calculating how much our lives are worth. His words chilled me more than the cold ground beneath me. At that moment, voices echoed faintly above the gorge. Rescue teams, helicopters. Damon and Marissa must have reached help. Soon, rescuers would find us. But that meant Damon and Marissa would be nearby ready to play their roles as grieving survivors. Harold gripped my hand weakly. We can't reveal we're alive. Not yet. The phone recorded everything. Their confessions. If they know we survived, they'll destroy the evidence or silence us for good. So I closed my eyes again, forced my chest to rise only faintly, and waited as the sound of ropes and boots drew closer. The voices grew louder. They're down here. A rescuer shouted from above. We've got 2 more at the bottom. Boots scraped against the cliff wall. The sound of ropes and metal filled the air as the team descended. My heart thundered in my chest. I had to keep up the act. One wrong breath, one flicker of my eyelids, and Damon would know we weren't gone. A man's hand touched my neck. His ear leaned close to my lips. Pulse faint, he called to the others. We've got a woman, barely alive. Inside, I almost cried with relief. The act was working. He moved to Harold. This one's critical but still hanging on. They worked quickly, strapping us to stretchers, attaching oxygen masks. My body screamed in pain, but I stayed limp, forcing myself not to react. Above us, I heard Marissa's sobs loud, theatrical. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened. They were so happy just seconds ago. Then the rock slipped. Her story was already rehearsed, polished. Stay calm, ma'am, a rescuer told her. We'll get everyone out safely. If only they knew the truth. As they lifted my stretcher, the world swayed. My body dangled, suspended in air, the helicopter blades thundering somewhere above. I clenched my teeth, praying I wouldn't cry out. When we reached the top, Damon's voice cracked with fake anguish. Mom, Dad. I felt his hand brush mine, testing. I forced my fingers not to move. They're still alive, a medic said firmly, but critical. I heard Damon exhale sharply. Alive. Then quickly, he added, thank God. But the tremor in his tone wasn't gratitude, was fear. We were loaded into the helicopter. The paramedics worked frantically, shouting medical terms over the roar of blades. My eyes stayed shut, but I listened carefully. BP low, pulse weak, but stable. Keep oxygen steady. Harold lay on the stretcher beside me. I felt his hand brushed mine, a faint squeeze. It gave me strength. One paramedic leaned close to me. Ma'am, if you can hear me, hang on. Just hang on. Tears threatened to slip down my cheeks, but I forced them back. I had to stay in character. When we landed at the hospital, chaos surrounded us. Nurses rushed in, wheeling us down bright hallways. Doctors barked orders. Machines beeped. A doctor leaned over me. Her vitals are strained, stronger than expected for near death. A nurse replied quickly. Could be trauma response. The body holds on in odd ways. They hadn't guessed my secret, not yet. Through the noise, I heard familiar voices. Damon and Marissa, can we see them? Damon asked. Please. Just for a minute. We need to say goodbye. In case they don't make it. Goodbye. The word dripped with false sorrow. The doctor hesitated. Only a few minutes. They need space. Footsteps approached. My blood went cold. Damon's hand slid into mine again, squeezing gently. Mom, he whispered, his breath hot against my ear. If you can hear me, I love you. I'm sorry. The words were sweet poison. Then his voice hardened. A whisper only for me. I hope you learned your lesson. You should never have asked so many questions about our finances. Some truths are better left buried. Just like Ryan. The room tilted. My son had just confessed in. A nurse was standing only feet away. Her badge read Innis. Her eyes widened. She had heard him. Marissa leaned in on the other side. Helena, you've been like a mother to me. We'll never forget you. Lies, all lies. When they left, I felt Innis move closer. She bent down, pretending to check my IV. Her voice was a whisper. Ma'am, if you can hear me, move your finger. I twitched my finger. Once, twice, 3 times. Innis gasped softly. Oh my God, you're pretending. They did this to you. I moved my finger again 3 times. Yes, she straightened quickly, forcing her face calm. I'll talk to the doctor, she whispered. Stay quiet until we can protect you. Relief flooded me. Finally, someone outside our nightmare knew. Minutes later, she returned with the head doctor and 2 uniformed police officers. Mrs. Bennett, the detective said gently, we know you can hear us. You're safe now. If you can open your eyes, please do. Slowly, painfully, I opened them. The light burned, but I blinked until faces came into focus. Innis, the doctor, and Detective Johnson. You're safe, the detective repeated. Now, tell us what really happened. My throat was dry, but the words came, raspy and broken. My son and his wife. They pushed us. The nightmare was no longer ours alone. The truth was finally out. The room went silent after my words. Detective Johnson leaned closer, his expression grave. Mrs. Bennett, we need every detail. Everything you can remember. With effort, I whispered what had happened on the cliff. How Damon and Marissa planned the hike. How they insisted we climb higher. How Marissa told us to smile for a last photo. How Damon lunged to push us. The detective's jaw tightened. Do you have any evidence besides your testimony? I nodded weakly toward Harold's room. His phone, jacket pocket, recording. Johnson's eyes lit up. That changes everything. Minutes later, the officers were with Harold. He was pale, his leg in traction, but his voice was steady. Take it, he rasped, handing over the phone. Everything's there. Melissa's words, Damon's threats, even the plan about the cliff. The detective called in a technician. They plugged in headphones, played back the file. Soon the room filled with the sound of voices. Melissa saying, it worked just like we planned. Damon rehearsing their alibi. The detective removed the headphones, his face grim but satisfied. This is more than enough. Meanwhile, in the waiting room, Damon and Marissa continued their act. They cried into tissues, hugged each other, accepted condolences from strangers. To everyone else, they were grieving children. They had no idea their performance was about to collapse. Johnson returned with a folder. Mrs. Bennett, we also ran checks on Damon's finances. He's bankrupt. Over 100,000 in debt. Banks, suppliers, and he hesitated. Dangerous lenders. People who don't forgive late payments. It all clicked. Damon hadn't just wanted our inheritance. He needed it to survive. Without our money, he was already a dead man. What about the children? I whispered, thinking of my grandchildren. In all this horror, for now, social services will take custody, Johnson said, gently. But once you recover, you can apply for guardianship. The courts will likely favor you, given the circumstances. The thought was overwhelming. Raising children at my age, but better that than letting them rot in the shadow of their parents' crime. Johnson's radio crackled. Warrant signed. Ready to move. The detective gave a sharp nod. It's time. Through the window, I saw officers gathering in the hospital parking lot. Plainclothes police positioned themselves at every exit. Then I heard the words that broke the silence of the waiting room. Damon Black and Marissa Black. You are under arrest for the murder of Ryan Black and the attempted murder of Helena and Harold Bennett. The shock in their voices carried down the hall. What's... Marissa shrieked. That's insane. They're dead. We lost them in an accident. They're not dead, the officer said coldly. They're alive, and they told us everything. No, Damon shouted, his voice cracking. Impossible. We saw them fall. We saw them die. Every word was caught on the officers' recorders. Another nail in their coffin. Marissa turned on him instantly. It was his idea. I didn't want this. He forced me. You liar, Damon bellowed. You planned the cliff. You told me it was the perfect place. Their alliance shattered in seconds, each one clawing to save themselves. From my hospital bed, I closed my eyes, exhausted but relieved. For the first time in 25 years, the truth was no longer buried. Detective Johnson entered my room an hour later, his tone softer now. They're in custody, both of them. They won't be getting out anytime soon. I let out a shaky breath. It's over. Not yet, he corrected gently. There will be a trial. It won't be easy. You'll have to testify. But with the recordings, the confessions, and their financial records, the case is solid. I nodded. My heart ached at the thought of facing Damon in court. My son, the boy I once cradled, the child I once prayed over. But that boy had died the night he pushed his brother into the gorge. What remained was a monster. For the first time since the fall, I allowed myself to sleep, and in my dreams I saw Ryan smiling, at peace. The next morning the hospital was quieter. Machines still beeped, nurses still hurried, but the heavy weight in my chest felt lighter. Damon and Marissa were no longer free to walk the halls, pretending to grieve. Detective Johnson returned with updates. They've both been formally charged. Attempted murder, fraud, and with the new evidence from your husband's recording, the prosecutor will also reopen Ryan's case as homicide. I closed my eyes. Finally, Ryan will have justice. Johnson's voice softened. It won't erase the pain, Mrs. Bennett, but the truth will be known. Later, Albert, the family lawyer, came in, the same man who had helped Damon push us into signing the will months ago. His face looked pale and troubled. I reviewed the paperwork, Albert said. The will Damon made you, sign naming him and Marissa as sole heirs, wasn't just manipulative. Parts of it are invalid. He altered sections without your knowledge. In fact, he placed a paper on my bed tray. Your signature was forged on one page. My stomach twisted. Forged by my own son. Albert nodded. We'll challenge it in court. Don't worry, he won't touch a single cent of your estate. Harold stirred in the next bed, his voice still weak but sharp. Let him rot. Let them both rot. For years, Harold had carried guilt for keeping the truth of Ryan's death. Now his anger was raw, unfiltered. That afternoon, my sister Harriet arrived. She rushed to my side, hugging me carefully around my injuries. Her tears dampened my hospital gown. Helena, I always knew something was off with Damon after Ryan died, she whispered. But I never imagined this. I should have pressed harder. It's not your fault, I said softly. We wanted to believe he had changed. We wanted to keep the family whole. She shook her head. Family built on lies isn't whole, it's broken before it begins. Her words cut deep, but they were true. In the days that followed, investigators uncovered more. Damon's carpentry business wasn't failing because of bad luck. It was drowning in debts from gambling and reckless spending. He had borrowed money from private lenders who demanded repayment with interest that grew every week. He was desperate, Johnson explained. Your inheritance wasn't just a prize, it was his lifeline. Without it, he was finished. And Marissa? I asked. She wasn't a bystander, Johnson said firmly. We found emails where she pushed Damon to speed things up before you went to the police. She knew everything. The betrayal grew heavier with every revelation, but what hurt most was thinking of the children, my grandchildren, to innocent souls now caught in the storm their parents had created. Social services will keep them safe for now, Johnson said. But you and Mr. Bennett can apply for custody once you're strong enough. That night, Harold and I lay side by side in the hospital ward, the machines humming softly. Do you think we can do it? I asked. Raise children again at our age? Harold turned his head toward me, his eyes filled with both exhaustion and determination. Helena, we already survived being pushed off a cliff. We can survive this too. And those kids, they deserve to know real love, not lies. I reached for his hand. It was warm, steady, and familiar. Then we'll do it. For them, for Ryan, for the first time in weeks. I slept without fear of waking to danger. But deep down, I knew the hardest part was still ahead. The trial, facing Damon, facing Marissa, facing the ghosts of 25 years of silence, and finally speaking the truth. 6 months later, the trial began. The courthouse was buzzing with reporters, lawyers, and curious townspeople. Headlines already called it the worst family betrayal in decades. Cameras flashed as Harold and I entered. both of us still limping from injuries that had never fully healed. Inside, my heart nearly stopped when I saw Damon. He sat at the defense table, wearing a suit too large for his thin frame. His face was pale, eyes hollow, but when his gaze met mine, I didn't see regret. I didn't see my son. I saw only a stranger, cold, calculating, still defiant. Beside him sat Marissa, her hair tied neatly, her hands folded like a schoolgirl. She looked fragile, innocent, even pitiful, but I knew better. Her eyes, when she glanced at me, carried no warmth, only blame. The judge entered, and the trial began. The prosecutor stood first. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case of greed, betrayal, and attempted murder. Damon Black and Marissa Black pushed their own parents off a cliff for money, and 25 years earlier, Damon murdered his older brother, Ryan, for the same reason." Gasps filled the courtroom. The defense attorney jumped up. "Objection, Your Honor. That so-called murder is an old accident case." The judge raised a hand. "Overruled for now. The jury may hear the connections." Then came the evidence. The prosecutor played Harold's recording. Damon's voice echoed through the courtroom. "They're dead. Perfect. Just like we planned." Melissa's voice followed. "At least we don't have to pretend we love them anymore." Each word struck the jury like a hammer. I saw some of them cover their mouths in shock. Then came the testimony of Nurse Innes. She described how Damon leaned over my hospital bed and whispered, "You should never have asked so many questions about our finances. Some truths are better left buried." Just like Ryan, her steady, professional tone gave the words even more weight. When it was my turn, I rose slowly from my seat, cane in hand. The room blurred for a moment, but I steadied myself. I had promised Ryan I would tell the truth. "Mrs. Bennett," the prosecutor asked gently, "please tell the court what happened on the day of June 14th at Maple Ridge." I took a deep breath. "My son and his wife invited us on a family hike. They led us to a cliff. Marissa told us to smile for pictures. Damon told us to step back. Then he pushed us." My voice trembled, but I continued. "We fell. We should have died, but we survived. And as we lay broken, we heard them say it was perfect, that they didn't have to pretend anymore." The prosecutor nodded. "And what about your older son, Ryan?" Pain burned in my chest, but I forced the words out. 25 years ago, Ryan discovered Damon had been stealing money. He confronted him. That night, Ryan died in the gorge. For years, I believed it was an accident, but Harold saw Damon pushed him, just like he pushed us. I looked directly at Damon. My voice steadied. "The boy I raised, the son I loved, died that night too. What's left is not my son. What's left is a monster." The courtroom was silent, except for the scratching of pens. Even the judge looked shaken. The defense attorney tried to attack my credibility. "Mrs. Bennett, you expect us to believe you can recall exact words after a 90-foot fall? Perhaps trauma distorted your memory." I leaned on my cane and glared at him. "Trauma makes you forget small things like what you had for breakfast. It doesn't make you forget the moment your own child tries to kill you." The jury's eyes never left me. When I returned to my seat, Harold squeezed my hand. His testimony came next. He confirmed what he had seen 25 years ago. Two brothers arguing, Ryan holding bank papers, Damon shoving him into the dark. The courtroom gasped again. For the first time, Harold's guilt was spoken aloud in front of the world. When the defense put Damon on the stand, he tried to look broken, remorseful. "I didn't mean to," he said, his voice trembling. "It was all Melissa. She planned everything. I was trapped." Melissa shot him a glare, sharp enough to cut glass. "Liar, you were the one drowning in debt. You told me the only way out was their money." The courtroom erupted as the two of them hurled blame back and forth. The judge slammed the gavel. "Order, order." But the damage was done. Their alliance was shattered. 3 days later, the jury returned with the verdict: guilty on all counts: murder of Ryan Black, attempted murder of Harold and Helena Bennett, fraud, and conspiracy. The judge's voice was steady as stone. "Damon Black and Marissa Black, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole." A gasp of relief left my lips. After 25 years, Ryan finally had justice, and Harold and I, though scarred, though broken, finally had freedom. The trial was over, but the story wasn't finished. Reporters crowded outside the courthouse, shouting questions. "Mrs. Bennett, how does it feel to see your son sentenced to life in prison?" I said nothing. What could I say? No words could explain the storm inside me. Relief, grief, justice, loss. Harold and I returned to our quiet home. For the first time in months, The air felt still, not poisoned by Damon's footsteps or Marissa's fake smiles, but the silence was heavy too. Every corner of the house whispered memories: Ryan's laughter at the table, Damon's childhood drawings pinned to the fridge, Harold's tools clinking in the workshop. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Harold and I sat on the porch swing, our hands joined. "It's over," he said softly. "They can't hurt us anymore." I nodded, but my heart still ached. But the children, our grandchildren, were innocent. They had no part in their parents' crimes, yet their lives had been turned upside down. Weeks later, the court granted us temporary custody. When the social worker brought them to our home, they looked so small, clutching bags of clothes and stuffed animals. The little girl, 8 years old, stared at me with wide, confused eyes. "Grandma, why can't Mummy and Daddy come home?" The boy, just 6, asked, "Are they in trouble?" Tears burned my eyes. How could I explain that their parents had tried to kill us? That their father murdered his own brother before they were even born? I knelt down, ignoring the pain in my bad shoulder. "Sweethearts," I whispered, "your Mummy and Daddy made very bad choices, but you are safe here, and Grandpa and I will take care of you always." They wrapped their little arms around me. For the first time in a long while, I felt hope. Life was not easy. At 61, raising children again felt overwhelming. School lunches, homework, bedtime routines, it was exhausting. My body ached, and Harold's legs still hadn't healed properly. But every night, when I tucked them in, I thought of Ryan. I told them stories about their Uncle Ryan, how kind he was, how he dreamed of building bridges and inventing things, how he always looked out for others. I wanted them to grow up knowing his legacy, not Damon's darkness. Months passed. Slowly, joy returned in small pieces: laughter at the dinner table, drawings taped to the fridge again, Harold carving toys in the workshop. Our home, scarred as it was, began to heal. One evening, Harriet visited. She watched the children play in the yard, chasing each other under the setting sun. She turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Helena, after everything, you still have a family." I nodded, my heart swelling. Yes, broken pieces can still make something whole. Sometimes at night, I still dream of the cliff, the fall, the pain, the taste of blood. But then I wake to the sound of children's laughter in the hallway, and I know we survived for a reason. Ryan's truth was no longer buried. Damon and Marissa's lies were finished. And I, Helena Bennett, was no longer a mother in silence. I was a grandmother in strength, because sometimes survival isn't just about living. It's about making sure the next generation learns what real love looks like.